First of all, I think this is Jeremiah, right? Yes. So, hi, Jeremiah. Thanks for that. First of all, I think you have to. That is an assumption that if we take on green policies, our countries will fall into recession, um, or economic development will be stalled. Okay, but there are a few things first that you have to check before we really accept that. First of all, is it true? Okay, because that's what America wants us to believe. That's what the Democrats and that's what the Republicans are all about, right? And they want to keep the carbon economy running kasi they really think that's the only way to go. Mass production, mass consumption, and all these carbon hungry um, econ- um, systems of production are the only way to go. Now that's one assumption, and it's possible. It's really possible. Why? Because um, the fact is they haven't found um, any alternative yet to petroleum as a replacement to mass production. Okay, and mass production delivery systems. But the question is it true that if we shift to a clean economy, that economic development will be reduced or will actually retreat in a sense? Okay, the answer is first of all, the answer is it depends on what you mean by economic development. Because if it's good old mass consumption, mass consumption and mass production and free market absurdism American style, then yes, of course it will. But the question is, why is that the only model of development, right? And the other question is, clearly it's not the only model of development. There are many um, economists now in both, mostly in England, I think, but also in the Philippines, I think, we're beginning to think of development without growth models. That's one school, development without growth models. The other school is the degrowth model. But yun na nga eh, because even if we say that, na okay, oh, it's time for us to catch up, it's time for us to catch up, parang it's time to us to catch up what? With their absurdity. And then when we catch up, what? We're just, basically, because the image here is that we are on a train that's on its way to off a cliff, 'di ba? And then we want to catch up, what? Falling off the cliff. Parang that's the catch up there, eh, 'di ba? So I think more than ever, what we have to do is really imagine new ways of economic production and new ways of ways to stimulate our economies. Okay. Now, I've said elsewhere, or I maybe haven't said it elsewhere that's published. Maybe I just said it elsewhere to my family or people. But I think um, this pandemic is really a gift in a sense. Okay, syempre not to the people who died and not to the millions who got the disease and are suffering from it, but for humanity as a whole, in a sense, it could be a gift. I'm sure it will be a wasted gift, okay, but it could be a gift in the sense that um, today we're forced to look at ways of living that are not necessarily so carbon dependent, right? And now we're realizing, oh nga, no, we didn't need all these things pala. We didn't need so many of these things pala. We didn't have to go on those wasteful trips abroad. Although people still feel that it was necessary. I don't know if it was necessary. But anyway, um, we didn't have to go to all those trips abroad. We didn't have to keep eating out pala and wasting all these resources. So on one hand, the pandemic has taught us, oh, ang galing, oh, 'di ba? Pwede naman kayong mabuhay na hindi sinisira yung mundo. 'Di ba? Kasi on the height of the lockdowns, there was a 17% reduction. Something like that. I'm making my numbers up, but it was significant. Okay, there's a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, right? And it was possible. But the flip side of that is now we saw na, oh, when you halt pala all this consumption and production, ang daming nawawala ng trabaho, 'di ba? Tapos talagang bumabagal yung economy. But the thing is, okay, fine, gets, tama ka, na when you slow down production and consumption, then people become suffer because of hardship, 'di ba? But now people are there are also economists and people under the realm basta there are many thinkers already proposing that that the pandemic lockdown was really a period of reset. Parang opportunity siya for us to reset, to rebuild the economy. Anyway, the economy wasn't so great, di ba? It was inequitable, it was destructive. Also, now that you're gonna rebuild, sinasabi natin, well, everyone has to have a job. Yeah, but in the same kinds of industries, marami na nagsara eh, 'di ba? Baka opportunity na to if except for Republicans to build a world that's not based on carbon kasi ang dami pang kailangang paggastusan at trabahuhin sa green economy. Okay, so there really is a necessity for a transition to a green economy, and there's a lot of jobs there. Like for instance, um, building up our solar capacities, or building up our capacities for electric cars that are not so pollution oriented, or building up industry, or rebuilding industries so that they're cleaner. Ang daming trabaho doon at ang daming gagastusin doon. So actually, since our government has money for stimulus packages, why don't we focus our stimulus on actually trying to rebuild a greener economy, right? Ultimately, yeah, we have to really rethink the way we live. So, right now, it's difficult kasi we're so steeped in it, di ba? Pero there are many ways to reorient. And I think talaga the number one problem in the world is consumption. Eh. The way we've built our security and our existence and our wholeness based on consumption. So, what we need to do is to reorient ourselves and give ourselves a better um, or give reorient ourselves from consumption and try to understand that there are other ways of realizing development and um, prosperity that are not founded on how much we can consume and how much we can produce, right? And that's a very sticky problem. But the thing is, people are thinking about it already. So I think the keywords to search are prosperity without growth and degrowth. I think those are the two areas that could respond to that. What kind of institutions, right? Hindi kasi basically the problem is all our institutions are really focused on consumption and growth, 'di ba? And parang that's the only way to grow, that's the only way to build, that's the only way to develop. But that's true, you're right. We do need to develop new kinds of institutions, other institutions that are more focused on growth. Okay. And we need to develop those institutions focused on sustainable development. Okay, I don't know if the word sustainable development is even a bad word these days. Eh. I'm not sure anymore what the right words to use are so much. But basta, a way of existing that's not destructive, a more creative human way of existing. What kind of institutions should we develop? I think we should orient our in it. So we need to build institutions that support a more a realis a more sorry we need to build institutions where the realization of self and the realization of our worth and our value is measured not by how much we consume but how much we create in the world. not production anymore. It's more creativity. So we need institutions that will harness human creativity without necessarily making it expensive or consuming or destructive or exploitative. Now, what kind of institutions are those? I don't know. Like I don't know pa what else will emerge in our time, but we will need time. I actually do not know millennial. I cannot. Okay, the only thing I know about millennials is they're annoying. They're so
Uy,
effing
millennial po ako.
annoying. Oo nga. Hindi, but that's the only thing I know about millennials. But the thing is, I don't know it myself. That's all I hear. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what you mean by millennials. And then Gen Z, the only, so I don't, yeah, my kids are millennial. But yun na nga, my kids naman are not annoying, so I don't know. Yung nakakainis daw yung work ethic, yung ganon, masyadong self-involved na ewan, yung ganon. Are you that way, Gian? No, but then, no, I'm kidding. But it's what they say, di ba? That's what they say. They even have mga trainings for, parang lawyers. Apparently, law firms have trainings for how to manage those stupid millennials. And then ako naman, why? The only way to manage them is to fire them when they're maarte. It's not the best way to manage them. Get them off their stupid maarte asses. But see, that's all I know. So I cannot answer that question because I really can't tell what a millennial is. But what I do get rin about millennials is that the millennials naman pala daw are like that, maarte, kasi naghahanap ng kahulugan. Sorry. Which is true. If that's true, then ang galing, di ba? Then yay for the millennials. Kasi, parang kasi what they say is, okay, fine. Ang pangit daw ng work ethic ng millennials. Which I don't know if it's true because all the millennials I know okay naman yung work ethic. Eh. Pero baka sa academe kasi we're better people. Ha ha ha. Anyway, pero daw, yun na nga daw. The thing about millennials is they prioritize development and and self-worth and finding meaning in their lives over wealth and career and things like that. If that is true, then yay for millennials, 'di ba? Baka yung problema lang talaga yung work ethic kasi nagiiwan daw sila ng trabahong malaga para mag-surfing. Yung mga ganon. Eh kung ganon, gago kayo. Taka na, mayos kayo. Pero, but my point is this. For the millennials, if what I know is true, that they focus on or finding themselves and all and looking for meaning, I think that's then the hope is in the millennials. Pero I think also there's a problem with the millennials na medyo masyadong self-involved. I don't know if that's just white millennials or all millennials. Pero medyo self-involved. Yung tipong maghahanap ng kahulugan at mag-travel kasi it's meaningful, ganyan. Without thinking, but you're destroying the environment. Magagalit sa'yo si Helga. Anyway, 'di ba? Parang in a sense, is that parang we have to get harness that. We have to harness that in millennials. If it is true, we have to harness the quest for meaning and identity. But we also have. But if it's also true that they're so self-involved, and I kind of sense that also with all that Facebook crap. Um, I mean, really, guys, nobody cares what you're eating. Okay, get over it. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, with all that pagka self-involved, I think we could veer away from the self-involvement but harness more the quest for meaning and bring in community, 'di ba? And bring in more community. That's very important. With Gen Z naman, 'di ba that's the technology generation. Yun yung huminga pa lang may hawak ng iPad. That's my son. What I'm seeing with Gen Z naman is that you know what? There's so much talent there also. And they're the ones who are going to harness the technologies of the future to build us, diba? But my what I'm seeing with Gen Z is yes, because of Gen Z, we'll probably be able to figure things out faster and more intelligently, and get our messages across more intelligently. Okay, and more quickly. What I hope for though with Gen Z is that they have space for wisdom too. Because what I'm seeing is that they're so freaking smart, they're so effing smart, but they're so opinionated and they know everything. And they're also the victims of that social dilemma. I don't know if you guys have watched that ano that documentary, but finally someone said it right, that you're being manipulated, you idiots. Okay. Parang Twitter and Google and Facebook, they're just showing you what you want to see. You're not seeing every side of the problem, and you think you're so smart. Diba? That's the problem. So I think Gen Z, you're on the right track naman. That's the wave of the future. We're really going to engage in so much technology to realize our potential. But and plus we need that because we're facing really we're facing wicked problems, 'di ba? Like global warming and this pandemic. This is just the first of many, unfortunately. But we're facing all these huge problems, these immense problems that are wicked or even quantum. 'Di ba? These different words for these kinds of problems. And I think the technology will help us figure that out, right? AI and information technologies and the speed and research at the speed of light will probably help us, right? But what Gen Z will lack, I think, is the capacity to slow down for reflection and wisdom. So mabuti pa may mga losers sa Gen Z na gusto pa rin mag-philo, ganyan. Yun pa rin yung, I think that's what will probably save us. But yeah, if people will just slow down, right? And that's why, again, this pandemic might actually have been a gift because then it helped us to slow down. But then it also pushed us deeper into cyberspace. Now, if you could balance that technology immersion and our our capacity to reflect and slow down, I think we have to balance that the speed and the pause. Ayun. Yeah. Okay. Definitely we should go back to our Asian philosophers because I think that's what's being lost there. Like, kunwari, in this whole pandemic, right? Look at what's happening to America. Siyempre, USA na naman yung example natin. Tanga nila eh. But look at what's happening in America. Where this whole issue about wearing masks, come on, people, you're just gonna wear a freaking mask, di ba? But it became such an issue about individualism and political stance and come on, don't you care about other people? You're so involved, you're so selfish, white people and Republicans, hello. But yeah, the selfishness, this incapacity to do anything for the community is really showing us that in a time like this, especially since we're going to be facing so many pandemics and so many crises, that we are caught in a kind of world that was headed towards individualism, self-involvement. Ay nako, 'di ba? Look at Facebook pa lang. Everyone is about me, 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 'di ba? Pero pero even in Facebook, even if you're building communities, it's about my community against versus others, 'di ba? So parang I think we should go back to our Asian roots where identity is rooted in community, where we can go back to values such as self-sacrifice and service and sacrifice, and humility, those things. But I think though that yes, so of course that's syempre pag sinabing Asian, the Chinese na naman or Indian na naman, 'di ba? Which is good, right? But then maybe it's also time to go back to Filipino indigenous values too, because I think that has a lot to say too about things the values that we want to promote. Like, kunwari, if you go back to the writings of Emilio Jacinto, for instance, I think there's a lot there that we can philosophize about, that we can write about and do philosophies about, so that we can um, rediscover what it means to be community, and what values and ways of being in the world will enrich, and will be able to respond to this crisis we're facing. Okay, especially because nga, the coming generation will be a generation facing multiple crises, wicked problems. Now, also, but I'm not saying go back, right? I'm just saying, now that we've seen the shortfalls of Western rationalities, it's time to begin to appreciate our own rationalities. But at the same time, since we're in the middle, try to see, how to enrich both rationalities, since we can. Eh. And that's the value of being Filipino, I think. Eh. Na we're in the middle, we're the people in the middle, and our rationalities can cross over it. So why not be the ones to foster the dialogue instead of just being the copycats, diba? So, like I said, if you read Filipino philosophy, the writings of Filipino philosophers today, and understandable ha, kasi alam nyo naman, kailangan ma-publish sa white world, ganyan, diba? Pero our writings these days are all like, if you're going to analyze, kunyari, if look at it, siguro all the writings of the pandemic that will come out will be like, well, if you see, Habermas would have said ganyan, 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 or the Confucian critique would have been blah, 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 or Rawls was right, ganyan, 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 di ba? Di ba? I bet you, ano, um, after this pandemic, or even before the pandemic, all the social writings were like that, diba? Which is fine. You need to get published, play the game, diba? Pero if you want to be genuine thinkers, and then when you're resting from wanting to be published and you want to do real philosophy, baka it would be interesting then to go back to the roots of your philosophizing, and then begin to read um, non-philosophical sources of our own understandings of what a good human life is, in order to expand both it, so that that's our unique role. Eh. We're mediators. Eh. We're mediators between traditional rationalities and these Western rationalities. Kasi guys, if you think about it naman, the root talaga of the problems that we have today were born from Western nationalities. And then, parang now we're dependent on them to solve the problem. 'Di ba? Parang pinaayos mo yung problema dun sa naging sanhi ng problema, ginagamit niya pa rin yung parehong katwiran eh. So how will we get out of it? He's using the same mind. So we need to expand their minds, and we need to expand our minds. And we have to enrich our own native rationalities, and we have to enrich their Western rationalities, their colonial imposed rationalities.
So, para din po siyang degrowth in the sense ng rationality.
Yeah, parang going back to who you are and finding out what you're about. Para bago ka naman sumabak na naman sa let's study na what white people said about this problem. comment niyan. At saka sumasang-ayon ako, lalong-lalo na dun sa pangangailangang gisingin muli ang ating kultura. Kasi, kung titingnan mo talaga, hindi sa ugat, hindi yata consumeristic yung mga non-westernized Filipinos. Yung mga hindi talaga pa sakop ng konsumerismo. Pero kahit sa palagay ko, yung mga karaniwang tao sa urban areas, kahit yung mga marahil ng Tagalunsod, kunwari, hindi naman talaga malalim pa yung pagkaugat ng konsumerismo sa kanila kasi yung mas mahalaga pa rin yung pamilya, yung pagkakaisa, yung komunidad, yung, 'di ba? At sa palagay ko, sa wakas, yun yung magliligtas sa atin eh. Kasi, sabi nga dun sa may libro kasi akong binabasa na dati hindi ko maintindihan. Sobrang simpleng libro lang siya. Ang pamagat ay Prosperity Without Growth. Tapos hindi ko maintindihan. Tim Robinson. Tama ba? Tim Robinson. Okay, anyway, sorry kung sino man nagsulat. But I think you're Tim Robinson. Pero yun, kung sa Prosperity Without Growth, kasi sinasabi niya, ultimately, we have to find other ways of marking prosperity. Yung ibang mga palatandaan ng pag-unlad, yung business sa pag-aari ng bag na 100,000, di ba? Anong klaseng bag? 100,000. Baka kung pwede akong tumira doon pag lockdown, okay lang, magagastos ako ng 100,000. O kung lulutang siya sa baka, okay, di ba? Pero kung bag lang siya, tapos 100,000, anong ibig sabihin nun? Kasi di ba yun yung mga palatandaan natin ng prosperity, di ba? Yung, wow, nakakakain ako dito, nakaka-buffet ako. Hindi ka naman natutuwa pagkatapos ng buffet, parang pakiramdam mo may sakit ka. Pero yan, yung mga tipong, yan, nakakapag-bondat ako, yan, nakainom ako ng kakaibang beer, o yan, gumawa ako ng kape na 3 oras gawin para lang sipsipin ang bagay, isang maliit na tasa, ganyan. Alam mo, yung mga ganong klaseng ka-OA yan para lang magbigay ng palatandaan na mabuti yung buhay, na may pag-unlad yung buhay. Sabi niya, yun yung mga mahal, yun yung mga magastos right? Kasi yung mga palatandaan natin ng pag-unlad ay nakaabot ako sa Paris, ganyan. Or nakita ko na yung Nile. Or, di ba, parang nakatungtong na ako sa Greenland at pinanood ko yung pagtunaw ng kanyang mga tundra, yung mga ganyan. Pero, parang sa wakas, yun yung naging palatandaan kasi ng pag-unlad. Pero kung titignan mo, sabi nga ni si Tim Robinson man siya, hindi.
Tim Jackson po, sir.
Jackson! Hindi, ito sa Tim. Tim Robbins pala yung novelist, no? Okay, ibang klase mga libro sinusulat ng mga kabaliwan. Anyway, si Tim Jackson. Sabi ni Tim Jackson nga, na parang kailangan mag-isip ng ibang palatandaan ng pag-unlad. Tapos iniisip ko, ano mga palatandaan ng pag-unlad nun? Kasi sinasabi niya, community, solidarity, mga ganon. Sabi ko, ang bullshit naman. Like, yeah, right, economic development, whatever. Pero ngayon, mas nakikita ko na siya na parang, oo nga, hindi ba dapat nakatali yung prosperity sa yung pag-unlad sa kaginhawaan, yung well-being, right? Kasi ultimately, it's a question of well-being naman talaga. We all just want well-being. Kaya lang doon sa West, yung palatandaan sa kanluran ng well-being, yung ano yung nakokonsumo mo, anong inaari mo eh. Sa paggawa nga nun, nakasira sila ng komunidad, nakasira sila ng kapaligiran, di ba? Tayo, kung titignan mo yung mas traditional na mga komunidad, kahit sa urban, kahit sa rural, kung makita mo talaga yung mga traditional na komunidad, mas malinaw yung pagkaugat nila sa ano yung mahalaga para sa kaginhawaan. At ano yung mahalaga sa kaginhawaan? Pamilya, pagkakaisa, mga masasayang sandaling magkakasama. Kaya mahalaga yung pagkain sa Pinoy kasi yun yung mga palatandaan pagsasama. 'Di ba? So, tama yata siya na ultimately pwede naman tayo bumuo ng isang ekonomiya at isang lipunan na nababatay sa mga halagang yun. Hanapin lang natin kung ano yung formang yan ngayon. Yun. So, yeah, I think may paraan talaga. May paraan talaga. At mabuti talagang yun, bumalik talaga doon. At saka, yung sa naman, dapat talaga tayong mag-istorbo. 'Di ba yung rethink? we really need to be disturbed, I think. And guess what? This pandemic, again, a gift, diba? Because what else is more disturbing than this, right? And sana people get so disturbed and realize, wait a minute, what did we do? What kind of yung communities? This what kind of world is this? Imagine all those people who are actually saving our lives, those doctors, those frontliners, they're earning crap, diba? Well, those people who don't naman make our lives any better are getting richer, diba? From this pandemic. What the hell kind of economy is that, diba? At saka, the fact na, oh, now we have to stay home, and then look, there are actual birds. There are birds pala, yung ganyan. Makes you begin to realize, wait a minute, maybe that's also important, diba? So that's part of the rethink. I think the pandemic is a time is a great pause. But it's also a great chance for a reset. Para siyang computer eh. Kung nag-pause ka ba at nag-reset, baka mas okay, di ba? Pero dapat, pag nag-reset, yung mga mapangwasak, yung nakakabagal, yung nakakasira, yun yung isang tabi nyo na. Eh, may chance na tayong gawin yan. That's so true. Actually, we shouldn't think of a new normal. We should try to think of a good normal. 'Di ba?
Opo.
Kasi, well, these days, well, if anyone out there wants, I, so anyway, these days I've been thinking about the pandemic. Obviously, who isn't, right? But then I was thinking, parang, I, anyway, try to bring things together. Just nung pinag-iisipan ko talaga siya, so anyway, I just wanted to say, so there, I wrote this monster of a useless essay. If anyone wants it, just email me arodriguez at ateneo.edu and I'll send it to you. It's all this stuff that I talked about, but in relation to the pandemic. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I had to promote it because I just basically read it and realized no one's gonna publish that shit. But maybe I can just circulate it if people wanna read it. Anyway, pero yun, my point is, yeah, it's true, governments are just rushing to, kasi syempre, what happened with the pandemic is that really economies collapsed. Eh. Everyone went to recession and potentially going into depression. And that's not good because it means people will suffer. Diba? But it's so sad, right? Kasi what the pandemic did was it forced us to live, parang it gave us a preview of life or a taste of life if you lived it sustainably. Medyo in a sense. Kasi parang, oh, sige, hindi kayo masyado gumagalaw, di ba? Hindi kayo masyado nagmumol, hindi nyo sinisira yung kapaligiran masyado, hindi kayo nagtitrips, hindi kayo masyadong nagda-drive ng malayo para lang magbisikleta, yung mga ganyan. Guilty ako doon. Pero, hindi naman masyado malayo. But anyway, di ba? Parang ganun. So, hindi nyo nang nagagawa yung ganun. Ngayon, naranasan nyo na yung buhay na maghanap ka ng mas simpleng paraan para mabuo bilang tao. Parang ganyan, di ba? Pero the really ironic and sad thing about that was, hey, we found a better way to live. But guess what? We're gonna have to kill people doing it. You know what I'm saying? Not because of the pandemic, but because of greater poverty. Right? Because now supply chains have stopped, people have stopped producing, ganyan, 'di ba? For that moment at least. But it parang now we have to really rethink, is there a way to live sustainably and humanely without causing this shutdown of our economy so that people can still earn a living and etc. But yes, I think talaga, so what will happen after this lockdown is magkaka-revenge consumption tayo. Di ba they have this thing called revenge travel and revenge consumption and revenge shopping. It's all gonna happen. People are gonna go crazy. Like, yeah, pwede na mag-mall, tara, di ba? Tapos araw-arawin yan, magsawa, kakain na naman sa mga restaurant, di ba? In this, and then go back to our unsustainable way, except with masks and plexiglass, di ba? So, which is right because it's just the old normal with masks, diba? Basically. But I think this is giving us a chance to rethink nga. And then to reinvest. Kasi governments talaga need to invest. Eh. That's really true. Governments have to spend. They have to spend to be able to stimulate the economies back into life. But government spending can direct also an economy. It's not just kind of spending that just like, give money there, and then people will go. No, you can start pushing money and giving incentives towards, like, you know, research research and production of safer ways of living, and greener ways of producing energy and things like that. So there are ways, and it's really spelled out already. It's been spelled out already by the green movement for the longest time. Diba? And it doesn't mean recession if we go to that. Anyway, we're in a recession already. What the hell, right? What have we got to lose? Diba? So yes, there. And I agree. But you know what? Global warming and the pandemic. Diba? I don't know. I mean, kasi if you leave it up to people, yun na nga, masyado nang ingrained eh. How will you change their minds, right? But maybe nature will do it for us. Kasi when the worst of global warming comes, what choice do you have? You know what I'm saying? And then when now that we're facing pandemics, what choice do you have? Kasi everyone is saying, all the scientists are saying, well, okay, most of the scientists are saying that the pandemic is clearly uh, uh, the clearly an effect of human intrusion, of mindless human intrusion into um, into the wild, right? And so now we have to rethink, what can we do so that these things don't happen anymore, diba? And it's not just a vaccine, that's just a short cure, but then at least it's a symptom of something. And the thing is, I agree with John that it's so hard to get people to change the way they live because it's so much easier this way, diba? Pero, two things. One, nature. Okay? And being. Sabi ko nga sa mga estudyante ko eh, kahit naman magbulag-bulagan ka, babatukan ka pa rin naman ng kalikasan. Kasi yung realidad eh, di ba? Kahit di ba yung mga moderns like, oh yes, we can doubt everything. Does it really exist? Ganyan. O sige, that's so true, right? Does it really exist? Try to walk past that wall. Reality will still get you in the stupid face, di ba? So reality is reality. It's just that how we interpret reality is probably the thing at issue. But when reality starts flooding and starving you and withdrawing water from you because nature is starting to dry up and all of that, then you'll be forced to change your ways, right? So that's my hope, John. It's sad and it's scary, but maybe that's the hope that humanity will learn its lesson. But of course, millions of people will die learning that lesson, diba? Pero I don't know, unless people, kaya lang yun na nga eh, sabi nga, alam niyo nung nangyari yung COP21 yata, yung convention of parties, when they were discussing, I'm not sure if it was Paris eh. Basta, I think it was COP21. So that means it wasn't Paris. But it was somewhere. Anyway, they were discussing, the nations were coming together to discuss how do we reduce greenhouse gases. Diba? They were coming to that agreement. Then before the Paris Agreement, one of the delegates, I think the UN convener said, this is one of the first times in human history where humanity is actually aware of the dangers facing it, that the species threatening danger facing it, right? It's one of the first times ever, so rare. Kasi di ba the Aztecs, nangyari na lang sa kanila, Rome just fell without them realizing what was happening. Now we're realizing what's happening and we can actually study what it's doing to us. So for the first time, humanity can actually face up, di ba? Well, except for Republicans, but it's okay. Sila naman yung inuubos ng COVID eh. Pero, okay, that's nasty to say, but it's true. But anyway, like, humanity can actually begin to wake up and make a decision, right? And we can see that in Europe, it's happening. Humanity is saying, wait a minute, what the hell is this, diba? What are we doing to ourselves? And then we can choose to change. It will take time, and maybe there's hope, diba? Pero if we don't act early enough, anyway, there's nature to correct things. My son is a little cynical, but I have a 15-year-old son who's very political and cynical, and was saying, I don't know why people keep saying we destroy nature. We're not destroying nature because whatever we do, nature will correct it on its own. We're destroying humanity. We're destroying the species. species, not nature. Kasi kahit sabihin natin, ubusin daw natin lahat ng gubat, and magko-correct lang yung nature, gagawa siya ng ibang uring buhay. 'Di ba? We're not destroying nature. Nature is bigger than us. 'Di ba? Don't be so don't be so sure about yourself, humanity. You're destroying yourself, 'di ba? Now, yeah, which is sad, but yun na nga, in our time, we're becoming aware of it, right? And maybe there's hope there. But whether we're aware, we become aware of it on time and act in time, nature will fix it, you know. And then we'll adjust, di ba? Sabi nga nila, may magandang saying sa Pilipino, di ba? Sinong mag-a-adjust? Ang nature? Hindi, tanga, ikaw. Parang, sige, may kwarto, ikaw at ang elepante, sino mag-a-adjust yung elepante? Hindi, tanga, ikaw. So, same thing. You're just gonna have to adjust. It's just a matter of when. If you're going to adjust sooner so you'll survive and have a better life, then G, di ba? Kung hindi, sorry. Sorry na lang, nag-adjust si nature eh. Ikaw mag-adjust, di ba? Yun. That's one. Okay. Now, my daughter naman, look at me, I'm bringing in all my children. Oh no, when my daughter was 8 years old, or 7 yata. Okay, this is a story that is bad, that will reflect badly on me, okay? But I'm going, and I don't think I'm supposed to say it, baka kasi my daughter will mind, but I don't care. Because it's a really good story. And plus, it's been published anyway, anywhere, elsewhere, so I guess I can repeat it. Pero noong 1990s, kasi I've been always a conservationist since the 80s. And then I knew about global warming naman since the late 80s and the early 90s. But by the mid-90s, I was beginning to read studies that were quite certain among scientists that they were saying global warming was inevitable. No matter how much we reduce, reuse, recycle, it's gonna happen. It's a question of how badly it's gonna happen. You know, that was me, like that was like siguro 97. So in short, or 97, 98. So in short, my daughter was probably 7 or 8 years old at the time. And then I don't know, I'm so stupid, I swear. But, which shows you I'm not a great parent. But anyway, I was so stupid that time, I swear. Kasi we were driving somewhere with my daughter. Kaming dalawa lang sa car. And, this is a 7 or 8 year old, okay? And then she was seated in the back. And I was making kwenta. I'm like, imagine, I just read that the scientist said no matter how much we reduce, reuse, recycle, they did the computation and global warming will still happen and it will still affect humanity. And then she said, and then syempre, if you think about it, why the hell are you saying this to an 8-year-old, you stupid father? Yan. Yung mga pilosopo, ang daming binabasa, wala namang malay sa mga anak. So I was saying to my daughter nga that one. So I said, oh my God, can you imagine that? And then it was so cute. I don't know if this is how exactly it happened, but this is how I remember. She patted me on my shoulder from behind, from the back of the car and said, don't worry, Dad. Sabi niya, don't worry, Papa. No matter naman what the scientists might be right. They can calculate things and their calculations might be right. But who knows what God can do? And there, I think that's ultimately also another thing we have to understand that maybe God is bigger than any of this shit we're doing. And that doesn't give us an excuse to keep doing it or to just pray. Diba? Okay, I'm not saying, si God naman pala mag-ayos, magdasal na lang tayo, ganyan. Hindi. What I'm saying is, so keep working on being a good human being and act in a way that respects nature and respects your fellow human being. Do justice to nature. Do justice to humanity. Because that's the decent thing and that's the human thing and that's the thing that will make you flourish as a human being. And don't give up. Even if it seems so dark and America's and Trump and all of that are just prevailing, don't give up. Kasi ultimately, no matter how dark it is, no matter how things keep seeming to cycle towards evil, just understand that maybe there's a God. And if there is a God, God is greater than any of the monsters you can think of. So whatever happens, it's all within that creative, transformative power of the good in this cosmos. All you need to do, like Gandhi was saying, is to cooperate with that good. Just cooperate with that good. O sabihin natin, in the end, natalo rin tayo. Okay lang, at least naging mabuting tao ka, di ba? pero pero I think it's true that when the more you realize goodness in the world, the more you participate. The more you participate in the good that can happen, and constantly, I believe that the transformative good in faith, I'm talking in faith. I have no proof for this, but in faith, I understand that the transformative good in the universe is constantly working naman. And no matter how much we screw up, and no matter how much we destroy, it can always transform that destruction into something good. So I think people who know these things should just stay with it. I was giving this talk in the 90s rin yata or in the early 2000s. I don't remember these things. Time for me is just a blur. I was giving this talk in Cagayan de Oro. I can remember pa it was Cagayan de Oro in one of the PAPs or basta one of those philosophical association things. Alam niyo naman, sorry, I'm gonna say this in public now, but alam niyo naman, madalas yung question and answer dun pataasan lang ng ihip just to show people na, look, I knew something. Like, I read, even if it's not relevant to what you're saying, ganyan. But then one time, sorry, yeah, it's true. But let's just say it once and for all, okay? Pwede ba pag nag-Q&A kayo, makinig naman kayo. Anyway, sorry, anyway. So one time, I was giving this talk, right? And it was, I think, in Cagayan nga de Oro. I was talking about the environment and the necessity to rethink nga. And then, eventually, and then during the Q&A, one philo teacher to, guys, philo teacher to, stood up and said, kaya nga, you know what? I know that all of this is inevitable. So you know what I do? I drive my car as much as I can. I go as far as I can. And, use up gasoline. And I know I'm using up gasoline and spreading carbon. And I consume as much as I can. Because my philosophy is, while it's here, you might as well enjoy it. At yun ang taong sumuko sa kadiliman, people. I mean, sorry, but that's the simple fact. You know evil is happening, and if you can benefit from it, just benefit from it, even if it's clear to you that it's not a good thing, right? Who cares for the next generations? Their problem. Walang anak yun. Gagong yun, walang anak. But my point is, sure, that's one way to go about it, but that's called despair. Okay? And the good is inviting us now. There's good in the world, and it's inviting us to participate in the creativity of that goodness. And okay, whether you win or not, it doesn't matter. The fact is, you are being invited to participate in the creative work of goodness, of good. And why not? I think ultimately it's the more fulfilling work anyway. It's the work that realizes your humanity. And besides, you have your community to worry about, and wouldn't you want to participate in the work of the good? Because the good is greater than anything we can calculate, greater than anything we can anticipate, and just cooperate with that work. So as human beings today, I think what we should do is just try as hard as we can to really reflect and try to understand what is the good here, because constantly being consistent with doing the good will probably will cooperate with the work of the creative work of the universe, and I'm sure there will be a good outcome. Maybe in heaven there will be a good outcome.
Parang ang ganda po nung panghuling salita, sir. Yung cooperate with the good.
Yeah. Well, that's how I
expressing po yung good.
Yeah. Nothing. Basta that's what I always try to tell my kids when they were small. God is greater than any of the monsters you can imagine. So just try to cooperate with me.
Salamat po. Actually po, yun na po yung huling...
Nice.
And it's very apt po yun yung huling comment. Para narinig po namin yung hope. I hope. Salamat po,
Thank
Dr.
you, Gian.
Reyes.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, UST. I love this time together. Sana meron pa.
Maraming salamat po.
Okay, bye-bye, Gian. Thank you.